Live from the planet Lotron. Thomas Gang Podcast. Man, I feel like it's been a minute, right?
Yeah, it's been a while.
And I go by
DJ Real Life.
Here with my companion, my beauty, my love partner, my everything.
You know my name, it's just Tiffany. You know my name, it's just Tiffany. You know my name, they got it. This is our introduction. This is what we do.
And this individual right here, she's been killing YouTube. I gotta intro you gracefully and properly. A breath of fresh air. Seen you on Lapeef. That's why I seen you a couple of times killing it, putting them in their place as they should have. The one and only Security Boss.
Thank you. That was an awesome intro.
How you doing this evening, man?
I'm doing well. And I'm honored to be here. I'm glad someone reached out and wanted to interview me. I'm glad somebody's listening. How about that?
Oh, we're listening.
We listening.
Listening.
I'm surprised nobody has interviewed you yet. I'm very shocked at that.
No, they haven't.
Well, they're still having the conversations, but just not interviewing. They're having the right conversations, right?
Right. But nobody's pulled me to the side and say, I mean, I don't know what you're going to ask, but nobody's done that as of yet, but you all. So I'm definitely honored to be able to speak to you all, and I'm glad that what I'm saying helps.
Yes.
And you can pass it on to others. So
yes,
definitely. Like I said earlier, seeing you on the Lapeef network, and I was just mind blown. Like, wow, this is dope. And I said, I got to put my wife onto this. And I said,
you did.
Yeah, I got to reach out to her and see if she'll, reach back. And you did. And when we're honored of you being here, definitely appreciate it. And the first thing we'd like to ask is, what got you into getting into YouTube and giving out these kind of messages that you give out?
And the wisdom.
Yes.
Well, the YouTube platform first started with a professional channel, which is Security Boss Making the Cut. And the reason why we did that is because my husband and I, we're co-owners of a security firm.
Okay.
So what it started out actually is we had thoughts of it being like a TV show because I'm going to say entertain, but so many different people would come into our office and they would do different things that I just felt like people needed to hear because you just wouldn't believe it. They would come in for like a job interview, but it would end up being something else totally. So we was like, this is just unbelievable. Let's make it a movie. Or it's not a movie, but a TV show. Mm-hmm. So we started with that. And, if you go back and look at, or go to Security Boss Making the Cut, you'll see some of my first videos of some of the things people actually say and do on interviews. And it's like, the highest seen videos, and people thought it was a little funny and actually thought it was a joke. They didn't believe that people would actually come to interviews and do that type of thing, but they do. So once from there, actually what happens is though, my, I guess, real passion or where I'm gifted at is actually talking to people. So in some of those interviews, I always talked to people and I always started there, but then it would end up in something totally not about a job interview. So when that happened, it was some kind of transition. I don't know when it actually took place, but it became more of me sharing some wisdom or some thoughts or sharing what I thought about certain things. And then we decided there that, we can't talk personally about these things on our professional channel. We need to come up with something different because, you can't miss business with, people get mad at you for whatever reason. They want to cancel you, hurt your business. So we went a different direction, and that's where Unsolicited came from. Oh. And so from Unsolicited, there I can speak on everything or anything, I should say. Now, I don't know if you all know, but since then, something else has sparked, and I call myself Rich Auntie.
Yeah, I
saw that. Yes, I saw that.
Rich Auntie is actually speaking to individuals that are 30 and under, and I'm still just kind of sharing the things that I share on Unsolicited, but more in a upbeat tempo, and I'm kind of allowing them to be themselves. But these are people who are very influential in the YouTube and Instagram world. And if they they're positive, and if they give a good message, then at least most of them have a 500,000 followers.
Right.
So if they're doing the right thing, then at least 200,000 of those people are going to do what they do because they want to be like them. So I felt like that's a good generation to reach and talk to and kind of keep them on the right track if possible. So.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I would guarantee you someone is listening and they're taking your advice and applying it to their lives. So that's kind of what happened with us.
Yeah, we've been married for 2 years.
Yeah, we're new to the game.
Right.
Oh wow.
And we started the podcast about a year and some change.
Yeah, it's been about a year.
And what we wanted to do was similar to what you're doing, is let people know to make marriage great again and to give off, give information about,
marriage
about marriage and all the good things that you don't hear. You hear a lot of negative things when it comes to marriage.
Yep.
So we wanted to be, inspiration to those who either are married or who want to get married.
Especially to our generation, like you said. I mean, we're not under 30, but we're not far away from 30.
Right.
So, you hear a lot of misconceptions about marriage. So
a lot. That's all it is, I think. And with YouTube, it's like nothing but talking points. Mm-hmm. And the younger generation, they hear it and they actually think that it's real, that real life is like that, and it's not.
Yeah. And I like something that you said. Forgive me, I don't remember which episode it was, but you said that marriage has not changed, but people try to change marriage to how they see fit. When I tell you that stuck with me, oh my goodness, it stuck with me because it made so much sense, because we have conversations with people who are not married and, they always talk about they want to get married, but it's just not traditional.
Right.
Right. So
and then the word marriage itself is traditional. Marriage is in the Bible. That's traditional. So if you want to have some different type of relationship or partnership, you need to call it something else. Right. But if it's marriage, you need to stick to the godly principles in which it was created. So I definitely
feel like that's missing.
Right.
It's definitely missing.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
So what do you think is the thoughts on marriage back then and the way people feel about marriage now?
Well, back then, I think, and I don't know how far you want to go back. Do you want to go back to when I was married or what my thoughts was, or prior to me?
Because you've been married. I've
been married
25 years.
26 now. No, November the 14th was 26.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's great. So even when you got married, even before you, like, what do you see the difference between back then when you got married and today, how people see marriage? Okay,
so before me, it was a necessity. And that was that was the thing to do. That's how they were groomed. They were groomed to find wives and get married, have children. That's just how it was. That was the expectation. And even within the households, if the wife did work, she was going to go to college to get a degree in nursing or in teaching or something that could give back. Mm-hmm. With my generation, I would say it was not so much of a necessity. It was just something that you knew to do, but not necessarily a necessity. And I got to tell you guys, my generation actually messed y'all up. If you just want to know the truth about it. You want to just be totally honest. We did.
We appreciate that. Yeah. Come on.
We did. We messed it up. We had too many options. We took too many options, and we birthed entitled kids. And this is what happened. We got away from the original plan of what marriage and relationship was supposed to be about. So that's just honest. And I see it, in some instances, it was maybe a couple of the generation before us, but it really went left with us, my generation.
Right.
So, and now it's not a necessity at all, because women are just as smart and making money and things. They're turning the tide, and they don't yet see the value in a marriage relationship. Right. They want the companionship, for maybe a little while. But even with that, it doesn't have to be a man. So they're just trading in everything to live the way they want to without morals or just to live.
Right.
Just living.
Now, with you saying that, what would you say the difference is? Because you hear the term modern women a lot more. I feel like I hear it a lot more versus the traditional woman, right? What would you say the biggest difference is in the two?
Or, you know what? I struggled with the modern woman thing too, because when I hear of modern woman, I think of a woman who didn't mind, getting tattoos, doesn't mind doing modern things, smoking cigars, just whatever the modern age does. But it was explained to me that within a marriage relationship, a modern woman is that woman who doesn't mind going 50-50. She actually wants a partner instead of a leader or a head. She doesn't want the man to be the head of the household per se. She doesn't want him to lord over her. She didn't want that. And they probably don't even know this. I'm saying this because that's what it is. Right. She didn't want that covering. She was just as strong with or without him. That modern woman is that woman that doesn't need a man, but would like to have him around.
Right.
In marriage. That's what that represents. A traditional woman wants the covering, wants the man to be the head, wants to not have to worry about the stresses of the world, wants to manage a home, doesn't mind fixing a plate. And she basically just knows her role and just, lives in it. It's comfortable. So that's the difference.
Right. I have to agree with that. And I was telling my husband, I think for me and him, we had very similar values and views on marriage. We both come from a 2-parent household. So he's seen what it was like. We had that model in front of us. Right. He's seen what it was like as a man to lead. I seen what it was like for a woman to support and to fix the man's plate, right? Absolutely. That was something that was just natural to me. Like I don't know. I've always seen my mother do it, so I do it. But I've also had to like you said, learn to be a wife, learn him. We're still learning each other.
Absolutely.
We're only 2 years in this thing, so we're still learning.
You definitely are.
Yeah. But I also wanted to ask you, because I see a lot of your podcasts also talk about submission. So. And I feel like that's a trigger word for a lot of women.
The S word.
It's a trigger word for a lot of women, but I like what you said. You said that in order to have peace, you have to have submission. Like you relax in submission.
You do.
So I want to hear your perspective on it, and tell our listeners and followers what you think about submission and the misconception people have about submission.
Good question.
Well, to me, it's like a two-party thing because I did a show yesterday where I spoke on my marriage vows, and where it happened to me was when I was actually saying my marriage vows. Right then in that moment, it all became real to me. Not until that moment did it wasn't real. You know what I'm saying? It just wasn't real until I said holy matrimony to obey. It just, none of it became real until then. Right. And then when it came real, it almost like shook me. But at that moment, I realized that this commitment that I was entering into was more so a covenant with God that I could not get out of and I could not fail at. So that's where the actual submission started. Now, I didn't know this when I was going through it, far as I knew what I felt. I knew then it got real, but I did not associate the two with submission. But for me, that's looking back on it now, that's where it actually started, because that's what actually kept me in my marriage. It was the covenant that I took of marriage to my husband, but it was also the covenant was to God to stay in the marriage. It was never to my husband. If it was just about my husband, I'm not going to lie to you guys. If it was just about my husband, 3 years, I packed up the whole house and I was out the door. I'm not lying. And I did. I packed up the whole house But I didn't leave. And that's weird. We do crazy stuff like that when we're young. But anyway, I packed up the whole house, but I didn't leave. And God has always taken me back to a place or that place. And I just said, I cannot run out on this covenant with God. Cause I almost like said to myself, I took these vows. Okay. So it's got to get to a place where he knows that I'm good. And it's not about my husband. I need to stop focusing on my husband and find out what's real and true. So that's where it actually started. So I started focusing only on God, and God started revealing things to me on things that I could do. And reading books and things of that nature was what came to me, because my husband, when you go into a marriage, and I don't know if you did this, Miss Tiffany, but I went in thinking my husband was everything. He needs to know all things.
Superman.
He needs to have an answer. Superhero. I call him superhero now.
Yes.
And he needs to have an answer to everything. He needs to know all of these things because this is what you're supposed to do, But if he didn't do it, I felt like he failed me. But I kept being brought back to, it ain't about him. It ain't about him. So as time went on, of course, I'm maturing in the relationship and I'm relaxing a little bit. I then stumble up on this submission thing. Not that I wasn't being submissive, but I did question everything.
Right.
So even in submission, I feel like we get it wrong because I still think submission is me submitting to Christ and not my husband.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in the world, it's been talking points that you submit to your mate, whereas that's not what it is for me. If God has given me my husband and he put us together and he's my covering, I need to believe in Christ that this is what is real. So I submit to the fact that I can't change it. So it's good. That's submission. What else can I do? Submitting is giving up my will.
Right.
That's what submission is giving up your will for something else. And that's what it is. I gave up when it's time to do so. I give up my will and I allow God to control it, which then in turn is my husband is used in that manner or whatever it is. He uses my husband to rectify the situation or complete the situation, whatever it is. So my true submission is when I say I can't do nothing else about it, I breathe, throw my hands up, take the wheel, God. I know y'all heard that before. Take the wheel, and I allow him to do so. So that's submission for me. And my husband, of course, benefits from it, but I just don't feel like it's so much about the man, my husband.
Right. And see, it's interesting that you put it like that, because I understand what you're saying and I agree with, that perspective. And then I also see, from a biblical standpoint where there's order, right? There's the man submits to Christ, the husband submits to Christ, the woman submits to her husband.
Right.
So I'm trying to think. Oh my God, I listened to so many of your podcasts today while I'm at work. I'm just going through, and it was something else that you said about submission, and it was along the lines. I think I have it in my notes. I had took some notes today. When things get hard, right, and you feel like you're ready to throw in the towel or throw your hands up, I think is what you said. That's when you have to submit, right? And that goes for both the husband and the wife. Right. Depending on the individual that's ready to throw the towel in.
Right.
And I think a lot of people have a hard time with that, because I hear from a lot of women and women who are also married, they feel like they're inferior to their husband and they don't like that.
But that's a good question, she said. Yeah. But do you think is that because of not just lack of understanding, but lack of a relationship that they have with Christ?
Inferior. I would say that goes to you would have to examine that inferiority, or why would they think that? Because I can say maybe that there may be some off demonstrations that the leader may be performing. Does that make sense? He may be leading and he may be self-leading instead of being led by Christ. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, absolutely. Okay. It does.
In other words, a little selfish. And remember, I always say, if you watch this video too, I think in order to be a good leader, you have to be humble.
Absolutely.
And humility will allow you to listen to your partner and get it right versus you acting in the physical and offending.
Right.
Because when you act in the physical, you're putting your will on the woman, and she may take it as I'm beneath you.
Right.
Right.
You know, because it may not represent her. And remember, if you become in one, she's a part of you. So whatever those decisions are should reflect the both of you. And if he doesn't have enough humility in him to say, let me listen, then it would come off that she's beneath me. Because you hear me all the time, I make the final decision. You definitely can. You can. You know, I want you to, because I'm not totally balanced all the time, and neither are you. But hear what I'm saying and then make that decision. And then I can submit to that.
Right.
But if I'm not able to even give an opinion, then it may be hard for me to submit to that. So
yeah, I think that's one of the misconceptions that a lot of women feel, that they won't be able to have a say so, even though we may have the last make the final decision. I feel like some women feel like they won't have a say so at all, and the man will just take over. And let me ask you this: how do you feel about when women out there, modern women, say, "I will only submit to the right person"?
Submitting with conditions.
Look at that face.
Submitting with conditions.
I don't. Again, remember, they missed the whole thing of marriage. You know, so that doesn't make sense, because again, they feel like they're in control of something. Now, I'm gonna just tell you something. Many years ago, I came to conclusions that for me, most things are spiritual and I don't control anything. There's nothing by chance. So when I think that way, it's easy for me to submit because I don't really feel like I'm in control of anything anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So if the energy is moving in that direction and I submit to it, it must be what I need to do. I think the lack of submission is what gets you in trouble, because you're going against what the energy is saying to do. So I just kind of relax in it. And now listen, y'all, this is me now. This is me at 51.
Right.
When I was 25 and I got married, I had to pray about everything, because I'm also one of those people that looks for understanding. You know, you just can't tell me something. I'd be like, okay, you know. I'm like, it has to make sense.
Make it make sense.
I'm the same way.
Yeah. And you know, that's not so much of a feminine trait, but that was who I am. You know, that's really an analytical thing. That's kind of a masculine thing, but it has to make sense to me. And it does. And once I can examine and I can see it totally, you know, the whole situation, then I'm like, okay, I'm good with it. But that goes to also me saying, everything is spiritual, and this must be what God, you know, I'm real slow to move, but I'm thinking it all the way through. Now, I'm not saying I may not overthink things, may even get it wrong, but I still think that is something that needed to happen. It's a learning something in me being wrong. So
Right. Oh, I love it.
What I say to them is, be quiet. You probably won't get married. Men, this is a red flag. This woman does not want to be married. She wants a partner, and she's gonna fail him somewhere along the line, because who's to say she's getting it right? I'm gonna submit to the right one. Who's to say you're getting it right?
Right.
Now, you just said the M word. Now, this was the M word being masculinity.
Oh yeah.
And you just, like I said earlier on the last Le Peep show that I saw you on.
Oh yeah.
You shut them 3 women down. Let me give you some on that.
Yeah.
I tell you, they was quiet like a church mouse. They're never quiet.
No.
I want to get your thoughts on that, because what did you see that was, I mean, the world saw it.
Yeah.
What exactly, as far as masculinity, did you see in those 3 women that you felt like is not tolerable for a man, or just them being women? Like, what did you see that night?
Well, it's mostly the 2, Kay and Kayla.
Yeah, Island Girl G was fine. Yeah, it was just
Island Girl is more so. I'm not gonna talk about her anyway. The 2, Kay and Kayla. What happens with me with them is it started with, they just I can't watch the show with them constantly talking.
Yes.
And that bothers me because I be wanting to watch the show. I want to watch. And I'd be like,
Yeah.
So it just got on my nerves so bad. So I said, you know what? When it's time, I'm gonna say something. So I got on and I let them know I took the angle of being, if you want to be married, this is not going to work, because I felt like they would hear that instead of me just attacking them, just running their mouth so much. That doesn't sound good,
Yeah.
Y'all need to shut up, So I took that way, because I do know that they're nice looking women and they want a man, they do. So
Yeah.
I said, wait, I'm basically ain't no man gonna like you. Y'all keep acting like that. You gotta be quiet. And maybe coming from a woman, they may, would receive it. And the fact of the matter is, Kayla and Kay often are very right in their points. And Tom be wrong sometimes. They're very right. But how can you be right if you done too? I can't let you be right when you done made me mad and I had to listen to your voice. I know you're wrong. I'm not listening. Shut up. So it's just missed this whole point. And they needed to know, in a marriage relationship, it would be the same way. They can't say, oh, because it's Anton, because the first time that they feel like their husband is lying or saying something that's not true, they're going to go with him the same way. It's going to be the same energy. So I just felt like they needed to hear it. But with me talking to you all, I got to tell you this. My husband is probably the only person that knows this. I really don't feel that Kay is far from being a traditional feminine woman. I don't. Sure, no, but I don't feel that way. I'm going to tell you what I feel like Kay's problem is. And I'm going to tell you why I think that.
We're going to be all
Kay, no, it's going to be real simple. It's going to be simple. It's going to be very simple because I relate. Now, I'm going to tell you what I see that it is. For me, I think Kay is very immature. Correct. I think Kay is a baby girl, the youngest of the family. And what I can tell you about baby girls, pay attention to her. And she's very smart. Okay. She is very smart, book smart. So with baby girls who come from 2-parent households, they usually are very close to their fathers. And the fathers allow them to get away with everything. So when she's going back and forth and just trying to get her way, that's simply all it is. She just wants her way. Yeah. She's like picky. But she's actually from a 2-parent household that's probably successful in marriage and knows exactly how to treat her husband. It's just she's immature, not socially mature yet to handle that type of engagement with older people. Right. And then on top of that, you got all this fame, this YouTube fame, because she's the talk of the town. So it's feeding that. It's feeding it. So it's like, I'm going to do it again. Yeah. And then, because sometimes I know that she's very smart, that. Even though she's smart, she has to have the last word, even if there's no thought behind it. Right. She'll say something like, Rilla say, Kay, I'm just going to leave you alone. She said, okay, Rilla. Then he said, you got to stop, Kay. She said, why? Yeah. And he'll say something else. She said, Rilla, just tit for tat all night, just so she can have the last word. That's that little girl getting on her big brother's nerve. That's all it is.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, doesn't it? I see it. I see it. I used to be a halation. I just hail around the house because I was the youngest. It was like 5 years in between me and everybody else. And I used to tell them stuff. Y'all may not know this. I used to say, I'm going to eat some cheese. So it used to be like, if they did something wrong when mom and daddy was at work and they would be like, don't tell nobody. I'd be like, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to eat some cheese. And eating cheese was telling it on them. Right. That's who I was. And that's who Kay is. I see it. So I just don't think she's far from being that feminine woman. And I think she's just hiding behind this YouTube character that everybody hates to love or loves to hate.
Right.
I think she's gonna have to sign up for some of your sessions in order to be that traditional woman.
But
She
you know
can't- but
what?
She is very
She
intelligent.
can't be different right now, though. She can't take on something different right now. She's even tried it. She tested us. She manipulated us a couple, not us, but the panel. She came on.
Being quiet.
Yeah, I'm gonna be quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah. She said, "What do y'all want?" She knows exactly what she's
She
doing.
knows what she's doing. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's selling a bill of goods. Y'all got to be careful with her. Not careful, but it's not real.
Yeah. She'll
Not real.
She'll get
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
'Cause
Oh, yeah, she'll get it.
That made a lot of sense to me because it wasn't for me, like you said, your point when you realized this was real was when you said your vowels, right?
Oh yeah.
For me, it was doing premarital counseling.
Okay.
Ooh.
My expectations on marriage did a 360, even though I had my 2-parent household and my parents are still married 40 plus
Mhm.
years.
Mhm.
I
Mine
still
too.
had a different expectation from him,
Yep.
you know, and it's like if he didn't do what my expectation was, it was more like, well, I don't want to be a part of this no more, you know? And she
Mhm.
told me, I will never forget, she told me, well, you can't just sign up and decide you don't want to be a part of it anymore because things are
Right.
going to change. Who he is now is not going to be who he is 10, 15, 20 years. And you're in this for the long haul. So
Yes.
it's time to grow up. That's basically what she told me. She's like,
Yes, she did.
Grow
you
up.
need to grow up, you know?
Mhm.
And I was like, wow, okay. This is real. So
But people don't get that. People don't realize that marriage is for real. I mean, I can say it all day, but they don't realize that it's for real. It's you get it right one time and you
Right.
do everything you can to get it right. You
Right.
lay everything on the table, even deal breakers. You lay them on the table. You
Mhm.
say exactly what would make me leave you if you do this. And I say stick to it. Because we said it was a deal breaker in the beginning. Nobody's perfect, but you know, you're talking about a deal breaker, but you got to know that we're in it forever. You're gonna be my one husband. That's it. But this is what's so hard is that you mature at different levels. You know,
Yeah.
you grow, I should say like this, you grow up at different levels.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
Oh yeah.
We
I feel
got
like I'm still growing.
only 2 years in, of course.
Yeah, we still
Yeah.
growing. So
Of course. We got one
Mhm.
more question before we let you go.
Okay.
You've been married with 26 years?
26.
26 years. And we both come from parents that's been together over 40 years.
Me
And
too.
we're new to oh, that's great. And we're new to this for 2 years. So what advice would you give people like us and people who want to get married but are scared because of what they see what society portray
yeah.
marriages are? What advice would you give those people, including us as well?
Well, if they're just asking in general for some advice, I would say first and foremost, take your marriage seriously. Marriage is for real, you know. And the next thing I would say is be intentional about everything pertaining to your marriage, meaning money, children, spending, work. Be intentional about it, meaning don't allow life to happen to you. Plan your life. You know, if you say, I want to be a doctor in 5 years and then I'm gonna have some kids. Don't have the babies within those 5 years because it messes up everything. You're not ready for it. If you're intentional about your life and your marriage, you'll do well. But when life sends you and gives you all these curveballs,
oh yeah.
that's when you get messed up.
Right.
Curveballs mess us up because we're not ready for them. But if we stay intentional and just be patient in the intent, you'll have a good marriage, you'll grow together, and everything will be all right. Now, there's one thing that you said you all did that I didn't do. We went to the courthouse and got married. We didn't have the premarital counseling.
Oh, you didn't?
We did not. We did not. But I do, we didn't. But premarital counseling is very good. I think that's something that everybody should have, unless you just want to, find out things the hard way. The hard way.
Yeah.
The hard way. But there was another thing too. One of the most reasons that marriages fail is money, right? You got to put that money issue on the table. It needs to be defined clearly on what needs to happen with money.
Mhm.
That's another thing. Don't play with money. No matter what happens, if this is the plan that we've agreed to it, stick to it.
Right.
Thank you. Well, again, we thank you. Hold on, let me do some of that.
That
Well, again, we thank you for joining our podcast.
Yes,
Seeing
you.
people like you bless us in the world with wisdom and knowledge, and that's something that's lacking, along with humility, like you said earlier. So anytime that we're able to see that, we want a part of it.
Yeah, we gravitate to that.
Right. We love it.
Yeah.
We're not
to the seasoned veterans who've been in the game.
Right. We're not stubborn. We don't know it all. So any kind of knowledge, information, or wisdom that we can get, we're all ears. We're willing to learn and also pass it down to people younger than us and people around us. So again, we thank you for taking the time out of your day, out of your night, and connecting with us. We really do appreciate it.
Listen, this has been great for me. Any questions that you may have? I mean, y'all were lightweight. I thought I was going to get some juicy ones.
But we didn't want to disrespect you, so
no. This
is we'll do it again. We had to ease into this thing. So we don't scare you away. We don't want to scare you away.
You don't understand.
We want you to come back.
You all do not understand how much you have blessed me. And I'm saying that because this is what I want to happen. Last night I did a podcast. Was on a panel. No, I did a show. It was my show. And this is what I want to happen. One or the other of you could have been 1 foot out the door and could have spoken to me. And I said, whatever it was to get you to stay. And that's what I want to happen. You just shared with me that I'm on the right track. I'm doing the right things. You all are confirmation. So whatever it is, because this is what I said. This is exactly what I said last night. I said, I want to speak to people who are married and let them know, stay married. You can do it or whatever. Don't walk away. Yeah. And you just confirmed it. You all confirmed that for me because you are married. You had your questions. We didn't get, personal or anything, but I hope I said something that will help in the future if you do have problems or situations that you feel like are so tough that you want to walk away. Right. So y'all confirmed it for me, and I haven't had any confirmations, if that makes sense.
You listen, that submission part, even though we are married, I've even had my doubts about it, and listening to your podcast gave me a whole new perspective on it. So that's why I was like, oh yeah, we got to get her on the podcast. So, I really appreciate that. And it was just amazing. It was a good time. Yeah. I hope we can have you back.
Definitely. Cause online or even, billboards everywhere, you see so much negativity talking about marriages. So when I see people like you or Riva TV or Chanel, like people who are really speaking out on it and dropping wisdom, like we need more people like that,
More of that.
Well, I'm going to leave y'all with this, and this is for Miss Tiffany. You always have to work on yourself to be the best woman you can be. And a lot of times you're not going to understand your husband, but I advise you to get this book. This book is called Power of a Praying Wife.
Heard of that before.
You got that for me.
I didn't buy that for you? Because, I don't know if she read it now.
You got to read. You may
wipe out the dust a little bit, but
I have my notes in my journal, and I'm telling you, I have been journaling. See, he don't know. See, I journal and I pray. Let me tell you, that has been my weapon these last 2 years. See, he don't be knowing. He be sleep. I'll be over there praying, Lord. He don't be knowing.
There, you have to read that book. In that book, I hope you have it. But that book saved my life because in that book it outlines men, and you have to find which man is your husband in that book. And once you find or identify which husband he is to be your husband, then there's a particular prayer there that is for that particular man. And it is life-saving.
Yeah.
Life-saving. Because it turns the whole situation around. What it did for me is it allowed me to have compassion for my husband and realize that I can't believe the physical. I can't believe the physical. I have to get to the spirit man, pray for him, and then the situation will be resolved. And I have had to go back to it throughout my marriage and find him again because he may change, one time he might be this person, the next time, but I believe that all men or all husbands are in there, and you just have to figure out, okay, 3 years in, he was this man. Now, 10 years in, he's this man. So your prayer might change, but it's in there. And I recommend that book to any young woman that is married, that wants to be married. Because the key is, for me, I think, is learning your husband, learning your spouse.
Okay, well, tell everybody where they can find you at.
I'm Security Boss, and I'm at Unsolicited. This is the place where you can, which I give you things that you didn't ask for. Unsolicited. So make sure you go there.
Okay.
Security Boss Unsolicited. I'm saying that because people get confused because I got 3 channels out there, but it's Security Boss Unsolicited.
Okay.
And I definitely appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
I thank you for being here. And again, hopefully we do this again. And we didn't want to be gossipy and chatty patty because we're not about that. We're all about just
positivity, influence, inspiration.
Right.
Thank you.
I agree.
All
Thank
right,
y'all.
Podcast, and we out. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.